Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're tackling an absolutely foundational topic for your Pearson Edexcel International A-level exam. We're looking at Chapter 1, Economics as a Social Science. I'm honestly so excited to guide you through this lesson because we're going to be breaking down exactly how economists think, how they build their theories, and what makes this field just so incredibly unique. It's a really fascinating journey into the mechanics of human choices.
But before we really get going, I've got a question for you. Think about this. Can economics really be a science when it studies human behavior? You know, when you think of a scientist, you probably picture someone in a white lab coat, right? Pouring chemicals into a beaker. You probably don't picture someone trying to predict what millions of completely unpredictable, emotional humans are going to do with their money tomorrow morning. So keep that specific challenge in mind as we go.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our exact roadmap for today, following your textbook sequence perfectly. 1. The scientific method. 2. Theories and models. 3. Simplification. 4. Assumptions and ceteris paribus. And 5. Positive and normative economics.
Let's start right off with Section 1, the scientific method, investigating ideas with evidence.
Think of the modern economist kind of like a scientific detective. We're constantly searching for patterns in how people, businesses, and governments make choices. And to do that, we need a systematic way to figure out what's actually happening out there in the economy. This scientific method is our main way of investigating ideas, and it follows 4 clear steps. Step 1, you create a theory or hypothesis. A hypothesis is literally just an idea that you can test. So, for example, you might guess, hey, if the price of a product goes up, people will buy less of it. Step 2, you collect evidence and data to see if that's actually true in the real world. Step 3, you test the idea against all that data. And finally, Step 4, you either accept, change, or completely reject your theory based on what the evidence shows. And you know, if a theory is tested over and over and becomes widely accepted, it might even become a core economic law, like the famous laws of supply and demand.
Now, this brings us to a really crucial difference between natural and social sciences. In the natural sciences, think physics or chemistry, everything happens in perfectly controlled laboratories. Scientists can isolate variables super easily. They can heat up a chemical and keep absolutely everything else the exact same. But in social sciences, like economics, we're studying human behavior in constantly changing markets. We obviously can't lock millions of consumers in a laboratory. Because human behavior is so dynamic and, well, unpredictable, economists have to use probability-based language. We say things like, it's likely that, or this may cause, rather than stating things with the absolute 100% certainty of a physicist.
Let's actually pause here for a quick mental exercise. Imagine the price of petrol increases. Will people definitely buy less petrol? I mean, what else could change at the exact same time to totally mess up our prediction? Think about this for a second. Well, what if people's incomes went up drastically right at that same moment? Or what if the public transport system suddenly broke down, forcing literally everyone to drive? Because all these other factors are constantly moving out in the real world, it makes perfectly controlled experiments pretty much impossible for economists.
Moving right along to Section 2, Theories and Economic Models, from ideas to precise predictions.
Since the real world is just so incredibly chaotic, economists really need specialized tools to bring order to that chaos and actually make sense of it all. An economic theory is basically a general explanation of a relationship. For instance, people buy more goods when their income increases. It makes sense, right? But it's broad. An economic model, on the other hand, is a detailed, structured, and simplified version of reality. Models use math equations, precise graphs, and diagrams. A model takes that general theory and makes it measurable, showing us exactly how a specific change in income might impact consumption. These models are the absolute essential tools that governments use to predict outcomes, like, say, how raising a tax is going to affect consumer spending, so they can actually make informed policy decisions.
All right, Section 3, Simplification, removing the unnecessary.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is it tackles a huge criticism. If you read the news, you might hear people say economic models are just unrealistic because they don't include every single messy detail of the real world. But I want to completely reframe that for you. Think about a world map. It shows you continents, countries, maybe some major highways. It deliberately does not show you every single tree, every parked car, or every person. If it did, it would literally be the size of the world and completely useless to you. An economic model is exactly the same thing. It is useful precisely because it simplifies reality.
A model includes only the most important factors and intentionally removes the less important stuff, making a wildly complex economic reality actually understandable. Leaving details out is a feature, for sure, not a bug.
Next up, Section 4, Assumptions and Ceteris Paribus, the tools of analysis.
Okay, listen up, because these next two concepts are a huge shift into crucial IEL exam terminology. They are absolute must-knows for your syllabus. First, let's define an assumption. An assumption is something economists accept to be true in order to make analyzing a really complex problem easier. And honestly, all sciences use assumptions. Think about a physics exam where you have to calculate the speed of a falling object. What does the textbook usually say? Ignore air resistance, right? By accepting that simplified condition is true, it lets you focus entirely on the core math of gravity. Economists do the exact same thing, to isolate the specific relationships they're trying to study, without getting completely distracted by the noise.
And that leads us directly to the most famous assumption in all of economics, ceteris paribus. This is a Latin phrase that means all other things remaining equal. When economists use this, they're holding all other factors constant so they can study the effect of just one specific change. So, the crucial point is this. If we say, if the price of a product increases, quantity demanded will fall, ceteris paribus, we are explicitly assuming that consumer income stays the same, tastes don't change, and the prices of alternatives remain completely untouched. We're basically freezing the rest of the world so we can look at just one moving piece, the price. Let's test your active recall with a quick scenario. Imagine cinema ticket prices rise, and the demand for those tickets falls. If we want to use the ceteris paribus assumption here to cleanly analyze this relationship, what must we assume remains absolutely unchanged? Is it A, consumer income, B, consumer tastes, C, the prices of alternatives, or D, all of the above? Take a second to think. If you chose D, all of the above, you are spot on. We have to assume all of those outside factors remain completely equal. Otherwise, there's no way we could prove it was specifically the ticket price that caused the drop in demand.
Let's move to and see how this builds into Section 5, Positive and Normative Economics, Facts versus Opinions.
Now that we know how economists build models and test theories, how do they actually formulate judgments and recommend real-world policies? Well, it comes down to a massive distinction you absolutely need to master for your exam. Positive economics is the objective, scientific study of facts and evidence. It looks purely at what is. Positive statements can always be tested against data and proven true or false. Normative economics, however, is all about opinions and value judgments. It explains what should be. Normative statements can't be proven true or false because they depend entirely on someone's personal beliefs. When you're sitting in your exam, look out for subjective trigger words like ought, fair, better, or should. If you see those, you're immediately looking at a normative statement.
Time for a rapid-fire interactive activity. I want you to mentally classify each of these four statements as either positive or normative. Ready? Number 1, unemployment increased in Sri Lanka. Number 2, the government should increase pensions. Number 3, a rise in interest rates may reduce borrowing. And number 4, taxes on the wealthy should be higher. Think about those definitions we just covered. Do you have your answers locked in?
Okay, let's check your work. Statement 1 is positive. You can easily go check the unemployment data to see if that's true or false. Statement 2 is normative. It has that subjective trigger word, should. Statement 3 is positive. Even though it says may, it is still a claim you can test using evidence. And Statement 4 is normative. It's a value judgment about what's fair for the wealthy. And you know, this brilliantly illustrates the vital connection between the two. In the real world, economists use both together constantly. They'll take a positive, testable fact, like many pensioners have incomes below the poverty line, and use that solid evidence to back up a normative policy recommendation, like, therefore, the government should increase pensions. The evidence is positive, but the final policy decision, that's a normative judgment.
And just like that, we've made it to the end of the chapter. We started with the scientific method, saw how economists build precise theories and models, learned why simplification and assumptions, like ceteris paribus, are incredibly essential tools, and finished by separating testable, positive facts from subjective, normative opinions. Now, I want to leave you with this final, provocative exam question. Explain why economics is considered a social science rather than a natural science. To really crush this on your IAL exam, remember to apply the concepts we discussed about unpredictable human behavior, our inability to control lab experiments perfectly, and why economists just have to rely on probability rather than absolute certainty. You've got all the tools you need now. Keep reviewing, keep questioning the world around you, and I will see you in the next explainer.